Sandwiched between Italy, Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and the Adriatic Sea to the south, Slovenia is a small country that packs a lot of Venice punch. There's a long history of winemaking in Slovenia. It was the first country to break away from Yugoslavia in the early 90s to begin the quest for quality, even starting back into the late 80s. Slovenian wines are well regarded, especially among wine professionals in Europe. However, they're mostly unknown to the wine world at large. In terms of wine production and style, I separate this small mountainous country as divided into two sides. When you get to the eastern side, that's more Austrian influence. The western side borders Italy, where you definitely feel more of an Italian influence in the food, the culture, also the wine styles. Even though there's a long history of wine production in the country, there's only about 20,000 hectares of vineyards, and just for comparison, that's a little bit more than Napa Valley, and Napa Valley produces only 4% of the total wine production in all of California. I've done a lot of videos about Slovenian wine, just do a search on the channel. Here we're going to focus on one of the regions on the western side of the country, known as Primorska. That's broken into three regions. Goriška Brda, which is the most famous wine region in Slovenia, has some of the big name stars like Movia, Marian Simčić, Eddie Simčić, Kabaj, and others. It's basically bordering Kolio. In fact, there are more vineyards in Goriška Brda than there are Kolio. You also have Slovenian Istria, and then this region right here, Vipava, has about 2,000 hectares of vines, but it's really important. It's a corridor from Western Europe, Italy, into Central and Eastern Europe. It's an absolutely spectacular valley. The vineyards are all hidden in villages up in the valley. I remember the first time I drove through, I was just blown away. It's the border of where the continental and Mediterranean climate starts. It's a pretty wet region. Merlot is the most planted grape variety, and that's followed up by a slew of white grape varieties. You have things like Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Friulano, Rebula, Malvasia, Istarska, and there's even their own native grape varieties like Pinella, Zelen, Klemnica, and a slew of others. In the western side of Slovenia, you'll find a lot of orange wines, a lot of macerated white wines. It's one of the countries that has the highest number of producers that are focused solely on producing macerated wines. Radikon and Gravner are credited as some of the first to bring back the tradition of orange wines and introduce it into the wine growing world. They're in Kolio in Italy. However, they have Slovenian descent. They speak Slovene. Two of the other producers that are credited for being some of the first to reintroduce the style of wine include Batič and Mlečnik, which we have here today. A lot of biodynamic and organic producers like some of the wines we have here today. I just came back from a short 2-day press trip in Vipava Valley where it was focused on food and the wines. The Michelin Guide has come there. There are some amazing cuisines, and you'll find it all in these small gostinas, these small restaurants scattered throughout the country. In fact, on this trip one day, we went to a Michelin star restaurant called Zemino, Slovene chef. They had a tasting of wine and breakfast there, and the presentation, the food quality was absolutely outstanding. The food's interesting because Slavic food sometimes can be really heavy. However, there's an abundance of vegetables there. You have this mix of Slavic, Italian, and Austrian. The cuisine can be quite sophisticated. It's really a country worth checking out. I used to live in this part of the world for half the year, and Slovenia I find completely fascinating. The wines are delicious. In fact, when it comes to more of the Eastern European countries, these new old world wine producing countries, I definitely think Slovenia and Hungary are at the top in terms of quality overall, with Croatia just right up there. I know the wines pretty well. I visited a lot of the producers, and during this trip I tasted some new vintages of some of my favorites and found some other producers that are rising in quality and a few producers that are new to me. We're going to taste them here today. These are all macerated white wines or orange wines. If you don't know what that is, check out my orange wines explained and tasted video. I'll pin it in the top comment. I'll also pin my Slovenian Wines 101 video. That was the first video I actually shot with this camera several years ago. These wines represent what's exciting to me about wine, finding all these small hidden producers in the far-flung corners of the wine world doing excellent wines. I spent a couple days going back and forth in my mind if I was going to blind taste these wines. Then I was thinking, do I blind taste and reveal one by one since we have 8 wines here? Although to get the truest blind tasting I can do here with just one person, I like tasting them all together and revealing at the end. But I notice sometimes people click off because that's a lot of wines to keep track of. But then I thought, you know what? This is going to be your first contact with some of these wines, so I might as well just taste them not blind. First up, we have the Guerila Retro 2021 White. great. This is available in the USA. These wines are going to have different pricing structures. They're going to be much more affordable in Slovenia and Europe, maybe even half the price. Again, I talked about the small production here. What happens in wine, if you import bigger quantities of wine, you get more of a discount. With small producers, they're exporting just a small amount, so they can't really discount the wines that much, and the wines get pretty expensive once you get in the USA. This comes in at 55 bucks. This is a blend of Zelen, Pinella, Rebula, which is also known as Rebula Gialla, and Malvasia Estarska, partially macerated, 55 bucks in the USA. Zelen and Pinella are local varieties. You don't see a ton of them. They are made into fresher wine, so I think Zelen, which means green in Slovenian, is better of the two when it's made into simple fresh wine. Pinella is a little bit bigger, but both of them, to me, taste better as wines when they have maceration. This is a biodynamic producer. I've actually stayed at the estate before. It's really high up in the valley, spectacular place. Biodynamic, I used to think the wines were always clean and always solid, but I noticed these last couple vintages, for them to have a little bit more character, they are more on the cleaner side. Let's give this a go. You can see the color right here. Nice orange, yellow, peachy. Let's give this a smell here. What I love about the wines here from Vipava, the producers are a little bit less known than those in Goriška Brda, and they use lighter macerations generally overall, and I just like the style of lightly macerated wines. It can happen in Burgundy too, and other white wine producing countries, that if you're used to more normal white wines, but there's so much flavor here. Oh my God, you get caramel, chalk, mineral, yellow dried apricots, yellow dried peaches. A little bit of pepper. These are ridiculously complex. Really good wines. Oh, maybe even a little bit of white pepper. This has got texture, especially for like big white wines. Cool thing about these varieties though too, besides Rebula Gialla, the acidity isn't super high, so it's not sharp. The wines are quite soft on the palate, and they are orange wines, so they will have just a touch of tannin, but not a lot of astringency, which turns off a lot of wine drinkers. Outstanding pepper, and this is not even their top wine. I think this is outstanding for me. 92 plus points to start. That's really good. I miss drinking these wines. When I used to live in this part of the country, I drank them all the time. Next up, we have the Svetlik Rebula Ivie 2023. I don't know the price. This is a tiny producer, businessman that started this winery just out of passion. His Rebulas in the past, or Rebula Gialla, were more like Gravner, heavy maceration, but I know he released this Ivie. It's only macerated for 3 days on the skins. Rebula Gialla is known as an Italian grape, although there's more plantings in Slovenia where they call it Rebula. While there are fresher examples being made, or even barrel fermented ones, I find the wines taste best when Rebula does see some skin contact. There's even a famous old text written by someone from Vipava, Matija Vrtovec, talking about how Rebula really needs a touch of skin contact to reach its full potential. That was written in the 1800s. Rebula Gialla is made famous by Gravner, Radicon. Those are really heavily macerated wines. Let's give this here a go. Very unique variety, high in acid. It has small tannins with heavy maceration, kind of can act like Nebbiolo tannic-wise. Let's give this a smell here. Great. I hand carried all of these wines. I flew from America, I went there, I hand carried these wines. I was going to Italy next, so I had to lug them to Italy and then lug them back to the US. That's how much I wanted to do this video for you, because I love the wines. These were some of the more impressive wines I tasted there on the trip with some of the better producers. This has dandelion, white peach, white flower. It's really floral, really pretty. Like a dried tangerine peel, very minerally. I like about these wines from Western Slovenia, Vipava, even in Istria, Goriška Brda, the macerated wines can even have a lot of mineral notes, which this has. Rebula Gialla has this bright acidity, so it's pulsating right through the tips of my palate. This is fresh, delicious. This is really good. I'm gonna go 92 on this. I think I got the Guerila 92 plus. I like it a little bit more, but it had a lot of complexity. But this is the type of orange wine, macerated wine, that you give to somebody that's never tried this style before. It's easygoing, it's delicious. I love the tanginess. I almost get the flavors of like a lemon sweet tart on the back end. Some websites that have Slovenian wines that ship to the EU, I think WINES and also evino.si. I'm not linked to any of these websites, but I will put the links in the description box if you want to try to find these and then you're in Europe. Next up, we have a producer that's brand new to me, and I was really impressed. Usually when you go to regions, especially these emerging wine regions I know really well, you have the benchmarks, and the benchmark producers really, there's a big separation in quality, and when new producers start, it takes some vintages for them to reach that level, but I was really impressed with these wines. This is the Santei. This is the four-leg with it's got a little illustration from their daughter here. 2022. This is a blend of Chardonnay, Malvasia Istarska, Malvasia Istriana, Sauvignon Blanc, or Rebula, part of its lightly macerated, 12.5 alcohol. Biodynamic producer. Let's taste. When I was there tasting the wines, they make small quantities of Cabernet Franc and Pinot Noir. The Pinot Noir was exceptional. Only thing was it was in a Bordeaux bottle. I told her, you need to put this in a Burgundy bottle. In the shelf in Slovenia, this comes in probably 25 bucks, which I think is a heck of a steal. I saw that they're imported in tiny quantities, I think in the US, but it's going to be really hard to find it. I bet by the time it reaches the US, you'll probably be in the $50, $55 range. This is golden in color. This is awesome. I was so blown away. Met the woman. I think she worked in pharmaceuticals before. Her husband worked in tech or something, and they went back and they wanted to start a winery and get out of the corporate world. Sweet caramel flavors. Dried banana, dried apricot, dried pineapple, mineral pepper. This is ridiculously complex. On the nose, you get that touch of oxidation that you're going to get with macerated wines when you put your nose in the glass. Well, it's like a kind of a slightly bruised fruit flavor, but it becomes really attractive when you know the style of wine you're getting into. Oh, I love the texture here. Sweet yellow fruits on the back end with a lot of pepper. Not a lot of tannin. Actually has the texture more of a barrel fermented white wine, which you'll see a lot with these lightly macerated white wines. I love all the flavors on this wine. It's so complex, rich. The only thing, I want just a touch more length, then it could move into ridiculous levels. I'm 92 plus. I think it's delicious. It's worth seeking out. And I was so happy to see new good producers in this part of the world. Awesome. Again, if you know me, scores are not an end-all, be-all, snapshot of moment in time. I just use it to determine a little bit of a hierarchy when I'm tasting the wines, and it can be changing. It's a sliding scale, and what I like might be different from what you like. Let's move on here. One of my favorite producers in the country, not only the Vipava Valley. This is the Burja Stranice 2020. This is their top white wine or orange wine. This is a blend of Malvasia Istarska, Welsh Riesling, also known as Lashki Riesling in Slovenia, and Rebula, single vineyard, only 0.9 hectares. This comes in at 45 bucks in the USA. In the past, I've been more of a fan of their entry-level white, just called Bela, but this vintage really impressed me. I tasted it there at the winery, so let's see what it's like here. Wines always taste better at the domain, at the source. Let's give this a go. Got a nice golden color, probably because a lot of Malvasia Istarska, Malvasia Istriana is a grape variety that's different from the other Malvasias of the Mediterranean, and the skins are really sweet. I feel like it does better as a macerated wine than a fresh wine. Let's give this a go here. Intense nose. I smell a lot of that Malvasia skin in here. You get dandelions, lots of yellow flower, you get banana, you get pepper. Tons of mineral type notes, a little bit of cut grass, ridiculously complex wine. Oh my goodness. Ripe pineapple, sweet peach, these wines are so complex. And also, they have so much flavor, they're fun to drink on their own, but they also pair well with food. In terms of meats, these pair really well with pork neck, pork shoulder. I love this glass, by the way. This is the Spiegelau Bordeaux definition glass. I bought it for another universal glass comparison. I know it's a Bordeaux glass, but I like Bordeaux-shaped glasses for a variety of wines. For a macerated white wine, man, this has got it all. It's got the fruit, and then there's a seamless transition into mineral notes on the back end, and it leaves with this mineral finish, really like kind of Riesling-esque finish, mineral flavors, not the sharpness of the acidity, along with some fruit. I'm 94 points on this bad boy. I think it's exceptional wine. Nice job, Burja Primož there. He's a biodynamic producer, small producer. They make maybe less than 40,000 bottles a year. Great at Pinot Noir too. This is excellent. Next up is a producer that I've known for a long time, and I've noticed they've started to move into the top tier of producers in all of Vipava. I am really impressed. This is the Pasji Rep Moser. This is a single vineyard wine. It's available in the US, 30 bucks. Malvasia Istarska, Rebula, Lashki Riesling, and Zelen. Lashki Riesling known as Welsh Riesling, and Zelen. Single vineyard, steep slope, slightly macerated. They do excellent, fruity, delicious Pinot Noir too. I was so impressed tasting these wines, and I was tasting them with some other colleagues, including my friend Davide from Italy. And I asked some of my local friends, I said, man, Pasji Rep, they're starting to move up in quality, right? And some of the local experts, as my friends said, yes, they've made drastic improvement in quality. Nice color here. This is similar in style to the Burja, although this is more mineral driven, where this is just got a tad more fruit. They're both minerally wines. Slate, crushed rock, white apricot, white peach type notes. The pepper here really stands out, which I like. Both these wines maybe have a touch of caramel. This has a little more dandelion type flavor. The palate has, there's lots of presence. There's a lot of power on the palate, a lot of fruit. The Burja was a little bit more mineral. This is a little bit more fruity on the palate. Right, I said it's more mineral on the nose, whereas the Burja was more fruity on the nose. It's funny, you flip-flop. The light maceration, the skin contact really adds body. For those of you who don't know, the color in wines comes from the skins, including red wines. Most grapes have clear juice. With white wines, you make it like a red. You take off the skins and then you soak them with the juice. The juice absorbs some color, some flavor, some tannins. A lot of these type of wines are macerated just for several days or a few weeks, whereas some techniques you can do it for up to 6-8 months. So those wines can be a little bit harder. This is exceptional. 93 plus points. Delicious, full. I love the richness on the palate. Just absolutely delicious wine. I did launch channel memberships. There's 2 tiers, and in the Grand Reserve, the 2nd tier, I'm going to be doing a live monthly tasting hangout. And members of that tier, you'll be able to come up on screen. Eventually, those live tastings will become only for those members only, but I need to make it public at first to kind of build up the crowd. Even at the basic tier, there are some perks. Thank you so much for supporting me. I'm also going to be launching a live video podcast, which will go up as a YouTube Live. Again, Grand Reserve members will have the option of coming up on screen, asking myself or the guest a question. So it's worth checking out. You can click the join button, and also I'll pin a link in the top comment below. Okay, we have one of those producers that's credited for being one of the first to produce these macerated style wines in the modern era. This is the Batič Zaria Vipava blend 2021. This comes in at 42 bucks. I know they're available in the USA, but you really have to hunt them down. This is a blend of Pinella, Zelen, and Rebula. So local grape varieties. This wine in the past has been a crazy wine. I have not tasted this vintage yet. I actually wanted to show their Malvasia Istarska, but when I was looking at which wines to bring, I said, you know what? I haven't tasted this wine in a while. Let me bring it and taste it on camera. 2 of the wines that this producer are famous with on the high end are the Angel or Angel red and white. They have real light maceration. The red is a Bordeaux blend, which ages great. The white is like a big barrel fermented white with a touch of maceration. Look at this. This has got crazy intense color. This is more extreme of an orange wine than the rest of these here, but still. I get sand, super ripe apricot, almost like overripe canned peach type flavors. Yeah, canned peaches. Put a little bit of white pepper, whipped cream on that. This is an intense wine. Wow. For me, the wines of Batič, as they do a great job with oak treatment a lot of the times. This has a nice sandy texture, almost like a high quality barrel fermented white wine, but you don't get a lot of vanilla. On the nose, I thought it was a little bit crazy. It's quite refined on the palate, round, long, complex. 92 hard points on this. I think it's delicious. These wines tend to age pretty well too, so it'd be exciting to go back and look and see how this develops with time. This used to be a crazy, crazy wine. It's a little bit more dialed back and reeled in. but change is nice. Next up, another producer that is new to me. This is the Fedora Goli Breg. This is a blend of Rebula, Malvasia Starska, Lashki Riesling, and Zelen. This is available, I think, only in Slovenia, around 30 bucks. Also, middle-aged couple that inherited the family vineyards, went back, left their corporate jobs to start the winery. I was really impressed with all their wines, including this white wine single vineyard blend. It's really hard to pair wines with vegetables. I think lightly macerated white wines are fantastic, maybe even better at champagne when it comes to pairing. Let's give this a go. I love this. Sweet apricot, sweet peaches, sweet pineapple. Also has just a touch of Ivie, not too much, kind of the flavor, that the balsamic note you get in Tuscan red wines. The fruit really comes through. There's a touch of mineral. It's probably the fruitiest out of all these wines here so far. Man, that's good. I like this because there's some wines that can just be all fruit and can be pretty off-putting. This has the perfect balance of explosive fruit, but it has complexities too as well. This is powerful wine, especially on the back end. A lot of fruit, long. It seriously almost has the kind of length and finish of good barrel fermented Chardonnay, dare I say even white Burgundy, with a little bit of age. I am so impressed with this producer and this wine. I'm 93 plus on this hard. I think it's very good. I mean, I think it's about the same score as the Pasji Rep. That's really good. Sometimes extreme orange wines can be difficult for people to get into, but in these styles, they're just lightly macerated. It can resemble barrel fermented whites with a touch of age, which I like it. Let's move on. This is one of my favorite producers in all of Slovenia and this part of the world. Tiny producer, make 15, 20,000 bottles a year. This is the Mlečnik Ana Cuvée. I think it was named after Walter's mother or grandmother. It is in the USA, probably gonna be about 50 bucks. It's a blend of Chardonnay, Sauvignon, which is known as Friulano, Tokai Friulano, and then Rebula. Also, another one of the producers with Gravner Radicon, which he's a good friend with, credited to be one of the first producers making this style of wine, in the modern times, that is. I've been to the producer 2 or 3 times, but I have not tasted this vintage. They age the wines quite a bit before release. That's what you get with a lot of these wines. 2018 is the current release. I remember about 6 years ago, I had an older vintage of this, and it was just, it was mind-blowingly good. I've always wondered why their Ana Cuvée label is a little bit different than their other labels, which I like a lot. Ana Cuvée is big, whereas their Mlečnik emblem is kind of small. This is an intense color, the most intense out of all of them. This is more powerful, more rich. Fall leaves, orange dried candy flavors, orange peel, dried apricot, even a little bit of a dried lemon type flavor. Almost has like this nice gin and tonic-y type aroma without the alcohol. Cool pepper. Oh, that just, it's you know those fall leaves flavors that we love out of Pinot Noir? It's almost if you sandwiched a bunch of ripe yellow fruits in those fall leaves and then put a little bit of white pepper on top. Good gosh. Oh. Sometimes when you have meditation wines, the wines maybe are not that enjoyable. You have to think about them. You have to struggle through them. You have to really think. This is the perfect blend between something that's hedonistic, delicious, but also a meditation wine. It's exceptional. It comes in at 11.5 degrees of alcohol, so it's not burning your face off. 94 plus on it. I think that's an exceptional wine. This is a producer that you need to seek out. All these wines are just absolutely exceptional. You can see how excited I was tasting this. I love this style of wine. So tell me, do you like macerated white wines, orange wines? Have you ever tasted any wines from Slovenia before? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below.